Today I'm going to be doing a bit of an overview on my modded / jailbroken Switch consoles. I'm basically going to be going over what they can do, what they're capable of, and what are some of the benefits of having a modded Nintendo Switch. I have two modded Nintendo Switch consoles. One of them is a launch day version 1 Nintendo Switch that I was able to mod myself using an RCM jig. The other is a Switch Lite that I actually got through a paid mail-in service through Etsy. There's actually a pretty crazy story regarding that, and I did an entire video on it. I'll put a link to that in the description if you're interested in hearing about it. The foundational starting point for a modded Nintendo Switch is the ability to boot into Hiate. Hiate is a bootloader that's capable of launching a bunch of different utilities. In Hiate, you can launch custom firmwares, completely different operating systems, run payloads, allocate memory, and create partitions for your micro SD card. Once a custom firmware is launched, there's a whole nother variety of different utilities that can be accessed, including Tinfoil, which is basically a title manager for all of your games, emulation, and homebrew. It allows you easy access to updates, patches, and newer versions. And it makes it super easy to launch anything without needing to constantly shift through different applications. Now when it comes to homebrew, the modded Nintendo Switch was both impressive and slightly disappointing. I know that sounds a bit strange, but let me explain. Now while there is a great amount of homebrew that exists for the Switch currently, and that number seems to be growing at a consistent basis, as it stands right now, a lot of the homebrew that's on the Switch is the same homebrew that exists for the PlayStation Vita. Now while I think it's beautiful and awesome that a lot of these projects are overlapping, it's slightly disappointing to see that there's not a whole lot of exclusive homebrew specifically for the Switch as of yet. Now like I said, I think it's awesome that the communities are intersecting, but I still would like to see some stuff that purely just flexes the Nintendo Switch's muscle. Now using a modded Switch as a retro emulation device, it can handle all of your 8-bit, 16-bit, and PS1 emulation needs. Nintendo 64 gives solid performance as well, and can even run some of the titles that are notoriously difficult to play on some other devices. Sega Dreamcast runs pretty damn flawless, and compatibility was never really an issue. You can get some really solid performance from PSP as well, and a lot of these games feel right at home on the Nintendo Switch. Of course, the experience was far from perfect, and some of these games are going to require some tweaks in the settings. It is actually capable of launching versions of Android and Linux. Now, once you have the console running off of Android or Linux, it's possible to install one of those emulators through there. Now, from my experience, running the Linux versions of these emulators gave slightly better performance, but there's no getting around the fact that there's going to be some trial and error and some adjustment of settings in order to get these games to run optimally. In the footage you're seeing, I actually had to overclock in order to get this level of performance. This is honestly the superpower behind owning a modded Nintendo Switch. It transforms it from more than just a game console and into a full-fledged lower spec handheld tablet beyond just gaming. Now what it really boils down to is how much use are you going to get out of this console by modding it? And I feel like the answer to that is on a case-by-case basis. If you're someone that owns another handheld, specifically a handheld gaming PC like the Steam Deck or ROG Ally that you like to use for emulation, you're probably not going to get as much use out of this as someone who ROG Ally. You really have to ask yourself, is it worth getting banned from Nintendo online services? So as it stands right now, I feel the people that would most benefit from jailbreaking a Switch console are those that don't go online at all with it, or anyone that has a backup Switch that they can link to their Nintendo account. A modded Switch is a really badass upgrade from the stock console. Its usefulness is going to be